Hi, this is Misha, and this is kind of a revisiting of the Romanian AES-10B RPK. We did a video about a year and a half ago shooting this one here. Also, we just posted a video on the WASR-10, its legacy and the ins and outs. I didn't include the AES-10B in that video because it was already getting overly long, but I wanted to revisit now that we have a couple of versions here. This is the standard AES-10B. It's a later import with the adjustable bipod. This is the so-called Paratrooper AES-10B. Very similar, except it has a wire folding buttstock. It has a Romanian 40-round mag in it. This one has one of the newer Chinese pattern backloading Romanian drum 75-round mags in it. Now, the Romanian AES-10B has an interesting history. The very first guns to come in were actually just called AES-10. No suffix. These came in 2005 for the first time and fooled quite a few people, including myself. This was right after the lifting of the federal assault weapons ban, so there were quite a few new AKs coming onto the market, and the AES-10 was one of them. And it looked in the beginning to be an RPK, and that's how it was marketed. But it wasn't. All it really was a WASR with a longer barrel. We'll throw up a picture here. Now, the AES-10 did have the clubfoot RPK buttstock, and it did have a 23¼ inch barrel. But those are the only similarities with the RPK. Whereas the AES-10B has a RPK heavy 23¼ inch barrel, the AES-10 had a lightweight standard AKM standard WASR profile barrel. Also, instead of having the bipod located at the muzzle, as on every RPK, it had a PKM bipod clamped under the gas tube here between the gas block and the handguard retainer. And it was, PKM style, so it was removable. It had a muzzle nut still tack welded on, and it could not support a cleaning rod. The receiver was standard WASR-10, the top cover was standard, the rear sight was standard, everything else was standard WASR-10. Well, even though these guns didn't really cost any more than a WASR-10 at the time, maybe $50 more, it made a lot of people, first, angry because it was misrepresented. Second, it really got people hungry for the real McCoy. Now, luckily, I got the gun. A friend liked it for whatever reason. And it was a long-barreled AK, not dissimilar to some of the older Mahdi and Chinese imports. So he liked it. I traded it off to him. That was the end of the AES-10B as far as I'm concerned. He still has the gun and he likes it for what it is. For a shooter or whatever, it's fine, but it's not a replica of anything military. Next to come out was the true AES-10B, such as this rifle here. The early ones were identical to this one except for one difference. Rather than having a true RPK bipod on the end of the barrel, they still retained the PKM bipod, which looks very similar, except it's short. It's a little bit shorter than this adjustable bipod with the legs fully collapsed in. And it has a clamshell hinge. It has a hinge on one side and then a pin you can knock out, so it clamps onto the barrel and can be removed pretty easily by just drifting out a pin. Not a bad bipod, and I've even seen them on some military RPKs as kind of a replacement. I think the reason Century went with them, they were easy to attach here stateside. The AES-10B, as with the WASR-10, came into the country with a thumb hole Dragunov PSL style buttstock, a single stack mag well, and the bipod wasn't attached, and the muzzle device was spot welded on, which was a muzzle nut. Once in the USA, they would pull off the Dragunov stock, add the clubfoot, add a pistol grip, put on the bipod, and unweld the muzzle device. So the first AES-10Bs were the fixed stock version with the PKM bipod. Then we get into several different minor variations, all called the AES-10B. The so-called Paratrooper here came out a couple of years later, and they're virtually the same exact gun, but what I like about them, this folding stock is specific to the Romanian RPK Paratrooper. It's the same pattern as on the PM-90 and PA-86 with a push button. However, the strut is just a little bit thicker, especially where it bases out in here. It's just a little bit heavier duty, a little bit thicker, more reinforced, a little heavier stock. So it is specific. Something else I've noticed with the Paratroopers, the handguard, the lower handguard, is more rounded versus this one, as you can see, which is more squared and a little bit thicker. It's a minor difference, but I've noticed it on all of them. At first I thought these were just being sanded down by Century pretty aggressively, but every one I've seen of the Paratroopers, the handguard is just a little bit thinner and a little more rounded off. Now, I think this is because these were all built, at least all the ones I've seen. I'm sure there's a few oddballs out there that aren't. But they all are built from 1989 kits, which are serial matching. At least, again, the ones I've found. The Century story is that these guns were very late production Romanian RPKs that they found in a, quote, bunker, and then that Cugir rebuilt them onto semi-only receivers and sold them to Century. So they were kind of a special run one way or the other, and all the kits seem to be from the same era. And they all have late features, such as the adjustable leg bipod. This one's fully extended. Folding carry handle. And so on. Now, the AES-10B, they will all have the 1.5 millimeter RPK receiver with the bulged front trunnion here. You can see each side. This is because of the heavier profile RPK barrel. Most will have the windage and elevation adjustable rear sight. However, some of the late production, late import fixed stocks had the standard rear sight, and I have seen those. So some will have the standard rear sight from Century from the factory. Likewise, many have the smooth, heavier, dutier RPK top cover, but some will have a AKM style ribbed top cover. People have reported photos of Romanian military guns with the ribbed top cover, so there's a little bit of a debate. It seems clear that later production guns had the smooth cover, but it's possible that early production Romanian RPKs had the AKM dust cover, or that they all had the smooth, heavier cover from the factory, but as covers got dented, broken, or lost in military service, they sometimes were replaced with AKM pattern covers, and of course the covers were serial numbered to match. No one really knows, no one's speaking, but you will see either one. Another difference on the later ones, if you look at the handguard retainers here, there's this little protrusion. The earlier Romanian RPKs do not have this. Later ones do. This is a cleaning rod guide. It's also a stop for the bipod legs. And from what I understand, and I could be wrong on this, but from what I understand, this came into use about the same time as the adjustable leg bipod. Now, as far as muzzle devices, most military guns, if not all, would have a muzzle nut. This one has a sugar scoop, US-made brake, put on by Century. This one has a reproduction AIMR conical flash hider made by JMac, which I just put on because I thought it was interesting. So that's the Romanian AES-10B. In our first shooting video, I said this is really the best import you can get for an RPK, especially for the money. When these came out, they were only about $100 more than the WASR of the day. And even towards the end, they were only a couple of $100 more. Now, these Paratroopers were always quite a bit higher. They were around $900 when new. Today, they go for a little bit more used in the 11 to 13 range. The fixed stockers were anywhere from 6 to 7 new. Now, J&G had some early this year new old stocks that they were selling for $1,100, and they sold out pretty quickly. So they've gone up, but not quite as much as the Paras because there's more. Also, with the fixed stocks, you have a much higher likelihood of them being a mismatch. Like this one, for example, the top cover doesn't match. The bolt carrier matches the trunnion and all that, but for some reason the top cover doesn't, which is a pretty common issue. It seems like these were built. This one is dated 1976. This one's dated 1989. So these were, the parts kits were from original service rifles. Looking at features and getting into naming conventions, and I would really like YouTube's help on this because I've researched it as best I could and I'm not sure on some of these. The original name for the Romanian RPK, Romanian Light Machine Gun, was the PM Model 1964, PM-64. Initially, it was an exact copy, more or less, of the Russian RPK. It did not have the carry handle at the time, and it had a fixed RPK bipod and a muzzle nut. Also, it seems like either the early ones only had magwell dimples, or they never did. Definitely later production Romanian and Russian RPKs did not have dimpled magwells. Instead, they have the reinforcing plates inside the heavy receiver. Early Romanians may have had them, but definitely by the 70s. Actually, excuse me, this is 1969 dated. I apologize. Anyway, by the 70s, this would not have them. As time went on, they would do some variations themselves, kind of depart from the design, especially after they adopted the PA-86 infantry rifle in 5.45x39. The adjustable bipod is one such update. It's a good one too because it allows you plenty of room to clear the 40-round mag. The small position is fine for the drum, but if you want to have the longer mag hanging out, especially if you want to get down and change it, you really need the longer legs. Also, sometime in the late 80s, they added this carry handle. And it seems like both of those features could appear on either 7.6239 PM-64s or the just adopted 5.45 version. Now, one thing you might notice on this, I have a Bakelite upper handguard. I kind of put this on just for fun. As far as I know, the PM-64s never had Bakelite upper handguards. I think they were always wood. But the 5.45 versions did have a Bakelite upper, similar to the one on the PA-86, and they had an upswept cocking handle, like on the PA-86. And most of those you see do have the folding stock on the 5.45s as well, and the conical style flash hider, again on the 5.45s. So I've kind of dressed this one up, even though it's in 7.62, more like one of the 5.45 guns. And they did do a fixed stocked 5.45 as well. It has a clubfoot stock, but quite interestingly, it has a flip-up butt plate. I learned this information through a member over at the AK Files, which is really interesting. I'd love to get my hands to field one day. Now, designations. This is where I don't know. Most sources claim the 5.45 version was called the PM-93, and they don't make a distinction between fixed and folding stock. Likewise, the 7.62 version was called the PM-64, and they do not make a designation for the side folding stock or fixed stock. However, one website I found asserts that the fixed stocked 5.45x39 Romanian RPK was called the PM-89, and that the side folding 5.45 RPK was called the PM-93. Likewise, they call the fixed stocked 7.6239 the PM-64. This name seems very firm and well known. But they call the side folding version, such as this here, the PM-91. I have not been able to verify these designations. If anyone out there, especially anyone in Romania, has something to add, please do. I'd love to know official names. These do seem to have been original factory folders in 76239, again, because they were built from matching kits, and this is a very specific stock to this model. So I'd love to know if anyone knows designations, so on and so forth. There's no real reason, but I'd love to know, just to know. So yeah, this is the Paratrooper that I've done up to be like a late production gun. I didn't put the upswept cocking handle, but otherwise, same. Just for completeness' sake, the 545 version would have also used a 40 round steel mag, although it wouldn't have near as much of a curve. It would be almost as long but more straight, similar to the 30 round 545 Romanian mag. They did not seem to do a drum for the 545 like they did. And as I said, this is the more recent import Romanian backloading drum that's commercially available in the US. The Romanian military drums were copies of the Soviet pattern, which were the top loading. They're a little more curved, a little smaller, and a little heavier dutier steel. But yeah, this is the AES-10B. Again, it's the heavy version of the WASR-10 that came in based on the Romanian RPK. I just have a thing for RPKs, so I love talking about them whenever I get a chance, so I just thought I would share. And again, if anyone knows designations, please let me know. I'd really like to know. Oh, one final thing. You see these kind of eyelets on each side. That's for detaching the bipod. If you take a bullet and twist opposing directions, these unscrew and pull out. It's two pieces. And then you can slip your bipod out of this coupler, which is kind of neat. It almost looks like this could have been mounted on the side of something, like fitting into a different bracket. Although it could have just been done for storage or for replacing damaged bipods. But this whole Romanian bipod assembly is quite unique to that nation, to the Cugir arsenal. And I really think these conical aimer flash hiders, even if not 100% correct on the 7.62 version, are really neat and interesting. They use these on their short rifles as well over in Romania. It's a very distinctive Romanian break. It's kind of like the PKM break, but a little bit different. And I think J-Mac did a really good job of reproducing it. It's very nice, thick steel, looks durable. But yeah, we'd love to hear about your own AES-10Bs. For me, these have always been very reliable, fun guns, and very unique. It's starting to kind of get collectible today because it's really the only true RPK to come into the country, aside from the small batch of Vepr 1Vs. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. If you haven't already subscribed and like AKs, well, we have quite a few videos on those and quite a few other guns. We try to be a little eclectic around here. We really appreciate you tuning in. And please tune in again next time for more hopefully unique and interesting videos. This is Misha. We'll catch you then.